Okay, good morning, everybody. Here we are 9 months later from our first COVID-19 update. I can't imagine back in March that we would be where we are today. Uh, I would have thought things would have improved drastically. However, we do have a light at the end of the tunnel. There appears to be vaccines on the way. Um, Unfortunately, the country has seen a spike. Fortunately for the state of Virginia, the spike in Virginia is lower than the rest of the country. However, the governor has issued new guidelines. We're going to be calling on Kate Baker, our chief lobbyist for the Virginia Retail Federation, our advocacy company, to give us an update on the new guidelines set aside by the governor. We also are going to be having Misty Leinberger of Pixel Financial. She will be giving us an update on the PPP forgiveness. There appears to be a lot of confusion regarding the PPP forgiveness, whether or not you should start applying for that today, or is there going to be another stimulus package that's going to basically forgive the PPP loans underneath 150,000. Just a lot of different confusing opinions about the PPP. So Misty's going to really shed some light on that for us today. We're also going to call on Joey Morgan. He oversees our digital marketing, and he will be reviewing our most recent Retail Pulse survey results as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic, and explaining what's happening out there especially in the small business sector of retail and restaurants. And then we're going to go through a Q&A. So with that, I'm going to turn it over and call on Kate Baker to give us a update on the governor's new guidelines. Kate?
Thanks, Ray. Hi, everybody. I wanted to give just a quick little update on the federal level. I know everybody is looking for additional stimulus money. You will be receiving an action alert to reach out to Virginia's congressional delegation probably next week, requesting that they at least pass something. Now, the caveat of that is, I'm going to be realistic. Nothing is probably going to happen until after the Biden administration is sworn in. They're not going to move on anything. You've got 2 seats that are still in play in the Senate, and that election doesn't take place until the very beginning of January. So the likelihood of anything happening in between now and the Biden administration being sworn in is very slim. However, we still want to put pressure on our delegation to support something to help businesses survive what they're going through. So moving on to the state level, we have wrapped up our special session that dealt with COVID-19 and a few other issues that adjourned about 2 weeks ago. It began in the beginning of August. It was a very long special session. And then shortly thereafter, the governor has issued new requirements. Those were issued a week ago today. So those requirements are that there can't be gatherings of 25 or more people, public and private gatherings. And these are social gatherings. So they're not intended to impact restaurants and their capacity limits or retail and their capacity limits. But if you are having an event and it is going to be 25 or more people, that is not acceptable according to these guidelines. 25 means 25. That includes like our hotel members who are having seminars, educational seminars. If it is not required by law to have that gathering, it cannot be above 25 people. And for restaurants, that would impact you if you've got private parties coming in that want to have a gathering. They can't be above 25. You can't have Christmas parties, etc. So the expansion of the mask mandate just lowered the age from the required age of 10 to now being 5. There was no change in the actual enforcement of the mask mandate for businesses. That being said, the governor and the Secretary of Health and many officials in the governor's administration have made it clear that they want businesses to say no masks, no service. There's still no written requirement of that, but I would recommend making sure that you've got your signs posted about requirements of masks, etc. They've also strengthened enforcement within retail essential businesses on adhering to physical distancing guidelines, wearing face coverings, enhanced cleaning, all those requirements, which the biggest piece of advice I can give is to make sure that your employees are following everything to the letter. That means making sure that their masks are covering both their nose and mouth. That's where we've seen complaints being filed that they're not wearing their mask properly, and you are required to make sure that your employees are doing so. It has also been brought to our attention that VDH, which is the Virginia Department of Health, is stepping up their inspections. They're starting with the bigger national stores and spending up to 5 hours in those stores, going through and inspecting and making sure they're following all requirements. So, you know, they're starting with the bigger stores and probably will move to the smaller stores. So just make sure that you are remaining vigilant and making sure all of your employees are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then one of the final things that was changed on Friday is the on-site alcohol curfew. It's now 10 p.m. So all restaurants must stop selling alcohol at 10 p.m. and they must close by midnight. Those were some of the changes that the governor issued. This doesn't impact religious events, doesn't impact schools. It's not intended to impact the capacity, like I said, for businesses in their everyday business transactions, but they can't have events, essential social events. Does anybody have any questions on those changes before I move on?
I do, Kate. Can you touch on the misdemeanor one? And
So yes,
if a consumer or a customer is in a retail store.
that's the question and the confusion for a lot of people. And we have reached out multiple times to the administration on getting some clarification based on the way the executive order is written and the FAQs for that executive order. The business is not required to make a customer wear a mask. I would suggest, again, posting the signage. You know, if somebody walks in without a mask, requesting that they put on a mask. But based on the written interpretation, I don't think that you are required to, like, say, well, then get out. Now, you have every right to say get out, but I don't think that there's a requirement that you say that. But the misdemeanor, so a business could be held, charged with a misdemeanor, class 1 misdemeanor on the mask issue if it's their employee. So if their employees aren't wearing their mask properly and a VDH inspector comes in and cites them for that, that could be what they're charged with. There's also a fine that has been implemented, but that doesn't go into effect until January, I believe, because it was from special legislation. So they're going to eventually have 2 ways to enforce it, a fine and also a class 1 misdemeanor.
So to be clear, in your interpretation, if a customer is not wearing a mask and they catch him, the business owner will not be ticketed.
That is the way I read it. If anything were to come to my attention that changes that, I will let members know. But as far as I read it and several others read these changes, it did not impact the enforcement of mask wearing on customers.
Okay, good. We also
but I will say verbally, the governor and his administration have said that they think businesses should step up and say no mask, no service.
Yeah, I saw that during, I guess it was Monday or Tuesday's presser. We also have with us Kate, our chairwoman of our legislative committee, Jenny Brittenton. I think that she has a question as well. Jenny?
Okay.
Hi, good morning. Kate, I think I had asked you about this earlier. I just wanted to check and see if there was any clarification. But if a restaurant or a business host an event themselves, so it's not a private event, they're hosting an event as part of their business model, do they have to stay at the 25 people or less?
Yes, they've got to stay at 25 or less. It's an event. It's not seating individual customers for restaurant service. If it is put out as an event, yes, they have to stay at 25 or less, unless that event is mandated by law. That is verbatim what I received from the governor's office a day or two ago.
I think there are some mixed messages going on, even at the local level with the health departments.
And that,
something I guess we can really help, but
there have been mixed messages going on throughout this entire issue. There have, and some local departments enforce things differently than health departments enforce differently than other local health departments. And I mean, a lot of our national members have received, complaints saying that they're not enforcing customers wearing masks and they're not required to do so. So, I mean, it's just a matter of replying to, if they're citing you with things that you're not required to do. It's a matter of replying with, here is the FAQ that the governor has posted on this issue. And, we're complying with everything that we're required to comply with.
okay.
And Jim, the answer to your question is Virginia Department of Health is who is going to be inspecting and enforcing.
Hey, Kate, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just had good morning, everyone. I just had the Norfolk Health Department in the building this week.
Yes.
I actually met with them, and they were not even aware of the new guidelines by the governor. In fact, I gave her a copy of it. And in fact, I even asked her to go into one of my tenants and give him a citation. They don't have she said they don't have the authority to do it. They know who does it. And the only thing they can do is walk in and say, you should have a mask on. This is not a customer. This is the retailer themselves.
Okay, Jim, will you send me an email with that? And I will share that with those in the administration.
You could repeat Jim's question because he kind of came out muffled.
Okay. He was saying that the Norfolk Department of Health came in and inspected. He went into a retail store and said that all that he could do was say, you're not wearing a mask, you should be, but he can't cite them with anything. And that is not what is being said in other health districts. So that's interesting. And I asked Jim to send me an email with that so that I can pass it along. Okay. Are there any more questions on some of those changes? I will say that, so the governor issued those changes Friday afternoon and they went into effect Sunday and there was no press conference. So over the weekend, everybody was hammering with questions on interpretation. They did hold a press conference earlier this week on this issue. And he has said multiple times that all options are on the table. I don't think he wants to do any more restrictions, but there's no guarantee that there won't be any more restrictions implemented by the governor. And I just want everybody to be prepared that things could change again, especially if the numbers continue to rise. I know that's not news anybody wants to hear, but it's what's being said. The other issue I wanted to touch on quickly is the emergency temporary standard that was implemented this summer for businesses to comply with dealing with COVID and workplace safety. It went into effect in October, and so all businesses are required to be in compliance with this, and now there is a push to make this a permanent standard. And the reason there's a push to make it a permanent standard is because you can only extend an emergency temporary standard for 6 months, and they've already done that. So they can't extend this any further. There are arguments that there are other ways around that instead of making it permanent. And we continue to push those arguments with the Virginia Department of Health and Dolly on this, which is the Department of Labor and Industry. There will be a comment period that opens up on this proposed permanent standard that you will also receive an action alert on. It looks like that could take place based on timing and making changes to it. It looks like the vote could take place in the beginning of January. But these requirements apply to all employers, no matter what type of employer you are. The application of the standard is based on risk level. So there's very high, medium, and low risk. Most of our members fall in the medium risk. So in this, you will see the exposure risk level definitions. This standard is on the Retail Alliance website. And we have hosted webinars on this that have been archived, that are available with a employment law attorney that answers a lot of questions on this. But most of our members fall within medium risk. So you've got to do the requirements not only for all businesses, but also those requirements for medium risk businesses. So like the first thing for all businesses is you have to do a hazard assessment. So that's determining what risk level you are. You have to develop and implement policies and procedures to report when experiencing symptoms for employees. You can't let symptomatic employees remain at work. You have to have flexible sick leave policy, which that's an issue that is going to probably come up during the General Assembly session in January. We were able to defeat sick leave in the special session, and we were able to defeat it in the regular session last year. But I am guaranteeing that it will be legislation this year, and it probably won't be tied just to COVID. It will probably be a mandate for everything.
Well, let's be clear about that for a minute, Kate. So this could impact influenza, for instance.
Are you the sick leave or this particular the temporary standard?
The temporary standard.
So the problem that we see with it becoming permanent is it is a permanent regulation on the books that can be amended. And while VDH and Dolly say that it is intended just for COVID-19, it has been made very clear in both the written and public statements that the advocates on the other side want this extended to other pandemics and potentially other infectious diseases. That is not the goal right now, but when it becomes permanent, it makes it a lot easier to make those changes.
And we will be having, the VRF will be hosting a special webinar on this, I believe.
Yeah, so once this goes into effect, yes, we will host a webinar with other associations with an employment law attorney to go over the changes and what is required now of businesses. But that's going to be probably in January when this actually happens. The other thing is notifying Virginia Department of Health within 24 hours of one case, and notifying the Department of Labor and Industry within 24 hours of 3 or more cases in 14 days, because they consider that an outbreak in the workplace. You have to come up with plans for symptomatic employees' return. So is it going to be symptom-based strategy, test-based strategy, time-based strategy? There also needs to be a plan for asymptomatic employees' returns. Same thing. And a lot of the guidance from the CDC has changed with regard to, if you've been exposed, you really need to quarantine for 14 days, whether or not you have a negative test during that time or not, because you could be negative, 6 days in a row and then have a positive test. You need to make sure that the conditions for common areas like lunchrooms, break rooms, that kind of stuff, meet the social distancing guidelines. And I know that's difficult, but that is one of the things that these inspections by the Department of Health are going to be looking for. Are your employees social distancing from one another? Not just customers, but one another, whether they are on the floor or they're back in the break rooms. That's, as an employer, that's your responsibility to make sure is happening. You must make sure, as I said earlier, that your employees are in compliance with all executive orders that impact them while they're on the job. Common spaces need to be cleaned and disinfected at the end of every shift. It goes on and on and on in requirements for employers. Again, this document is on our website, and as has been said multiple times, you really do need to read through it, make sure you've checked everything off and that you're in compliance. This protects you from inspections from BDH. It also protects you as an employer with your relationship with your employees.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I just ask our audience to pay attention to any of the emails that come out from Retail Alliance regarding the briefing on this.
Yes. And also another big thing is the VRF emails. They contain all of this information. They're going to contain updates on what's going on federal, state level. And we send them out pretty frequently. So if you're not getting the VRF emails, let me know. And if you're not reading them, make sure that you do, because they really do contain a ton of information. And they also are a lot of action alerts allowing you to speak to your legislators about how COVID and these mandates are impacting your business.
Yeah, I think it's a 41 or 42 page document, but again, it really applies. It's broken out into the different risk categories, and the medium is not as long as the entire document. So.
Right. And it's overwhelming when you first look at it, but once you start reading it, it is written in terms that you can pretty easily understand. But if you have questions, let me know.
We read it, and we've implemented what the recommendations were in Retail Alliance. So it's not that hard to follow. Anything else, Kate?
I think that's it. Just, the 2021 regular session starts in January. There is kind of a battle back and forth on how long that session will last. The House has said that it will be 100% virtual. And the Republicans in both the Senate and the House are saying that if that's the case and the Virginia citizens can't participate in the legislature, which is very important, that they will not vote to extend the session to the 45 days that it typically is. They'll just go with the constitutionally mandated 30 days, which could then cause the majority to vote to adjourn the session at the very beginning of it and then ask the governor to call a special session, which has no time limit and no restrictions on fundraising, and just it could be a very interesting year.
I guess they're still getting paid their travel expense as well, huh? Even though they're probably at home.
They were during special session when they had meetings, yes.
Okay. Any questions for Kate? Thank you, Kate. And
You're
now
welcome.
we're going to move on to Misty Leinberger of Pixel Financial Group. Misty has joined us for the other 15 COVID-19 updates that we've had. We're very fortunate to have Misty. She comes with a wealth of knowledge and understanding of the PPP. And now we're into the forgiveness stage. So Misty, if you could please lead us through that maze.
Sure, absolutely. So the first thing I want to establish is there seems to be some confusion as to this December 31st date. I've had a lot of people ask me, well, don't we have to apply for forgiveness by December 31st? No. What you have to have done by December 31st is have your full-time equivalents fixed, as well as any reductions in salaries and wages that may have happened over 25%. You have to have those fixed by December 31st. However, the application for forgiveness does not expire until 10 months after your covered period. Now, for some people who were in the early waves of the PPP, that means come late January, early February, they're going to be hitting that 10-month mark where they absolutely need to get an application in. However, in some cases, I'm saying let's still wait. Now, they have made some changes recently. If you have a loan that is $50,000 or less, they have now changed it so that it's much easier to apply for the forgiveness through a form called the 3508S. It's a 2-pager, and it's waiving calculations for FTEs, and it's waiving reductions in salary of more than 25%. So they're not even taking that into account in terms of calculating your forgiveness. However, you will still need to provide the documentation because you still need to have spent that money on qualified expenses, and the forgiveness will still be reduced by the amount of the EIDL grant that you received. And that's another part that people seem to be very confused about, is that the EIDL loan, the loan part and the grant part, were two separate things. So the EIDL grant is something that you do not have to be paid, you do not have to pay it back, but it does reduce the forgiveness of your PPP. So you're paying it back. So just keep that in mind. Other issues with forgiveness is that there are a lot of rumors out there that Congress is going to make it so that anybody who has a loan of $150,000 or less is going to be automatically forgiven. And as Kate was talking about earlier, Congress really isn't going to be doing much about anything until after the first of the year, until the administration has changed over. So while there are lots of rumors out in the media and whispers, even from some politicians, nothing has actually been done about that yet, which is why I'm saying if you have a loan that is more than $50,000 and you aren't a one-man, one-woman show, still wait, still hold off and wait, because once you apply, any changes that happen will no longer apply to you. So again, I want everybody to continue to hold off if they can. However, the two groups of people who should just go ahead and apply right now are the people who have $50,000 or less, or you're self-employed, which means you have no employees. It was just you, no reason not to apply. Now, the only long pole in the tent there is your bank ready to take the new simplified application for you? So you need to be reaching out to your bank and asking those questions. In terms of anything else going on, in terms of the forgiveness of the PPP, there's still not a lot. There's just not a lot happening, just little changes here and there. I've received a lot of questions about whether or not people can still apply for the EIDL. And the answer is, I looked yesterday, and yes, they're still accepting applications for the EIDL. And you can even check the box saying, please consider me for the grant. So I don't know if grants are actually going out, but you can still check that box. So if you are finding that, especially with the second wave that's happening, that you haven't taken an EIDL before, this might actually be another option for you. People are asking about a second wave of PPP. Again, I don't know. And then another common question to that is, well, if there's a second wave of PPP and I already have one, do I get to apply again? And again, there's just absolutely no guidance on that whatsoever. There are ideas out there that I think people are throwing around and taking as fact. So I would just be cautious. If you're receiving information, please contact me, get it confirmed before you take it for gospel. But again, we're just kind of in this little gray area where there's a lot of information flying around, but nothing that is solid, confirmed, anything else like that. So all I can say is I'm trying to keep my eye on it, and we'll let everybody know when things start finally happening.
Thank you, Misty. So a question for you. The PPP was stipulating that you couldn't lay anybody off or furlough anybody for the year. So let's just say hypothetically that we go beyond a new year and the spike continues and a government shutdown comes in and some of our smaller guys do need to lay people off or furlough people. Can they do that and receive the PPP that they had applied for earlier in 2020?
You mean after the fact, after they've already spent their PPP funds? And
yeah, and it's after January 1st.
The answer is, based under the rules right now, I wouldn't do that until you apply for forgiveness. So if you think that you're going to have to be laying anybody off or furloughing anybody, and you have a more than $50,000 PPP loan, I would then in that case say, okay, well, you need to apply for the forgiveness before you do that, because it is based on how many employees you had prior and how many employees you have at the time you apply. So if you think that that's going to happen to you, then you probably want to push up the timeline for forgiveness so you don't lose the forgiveness. Now, that's not to say that somewhere down the road, the government isn't going to make some sort of change, but I don't know right now. I can just tell you that right now, everything is predicated on how many employees you have when you finally apply for forgiveness. And in some cases, people are going to qualify for the safe harbors. So, It might not be as bad for some people as others, but you just have to watch out.
Okay, thank you, Misty. Do we have any questions for Misty? I don't see anything in the chat box.
Oh, and I did want to mention,
Thank you so much for that.
I did put, if you look at the top of the chat box, I did put, I forgot to mention this, I'm sorry, Ray. I did put links to the PPP forgiveness tool, as well as a link to the YouTube video I did that kind of takes you through the PPP forgiveness tool. So even if you aren't applying for forgiveness now, I do highly recommend that you go through that tool so that you have everything ready to go when it comes time to actually apply for that forgiveness.
That's extremely helpful. And Joey, if we can send that out to our members, that might be a added benefit as well.
Will do for sure.
Okay. Thank you very much, Misty, because there is a lot of confusion out there about the PPP and the forgiveness and the automatic forgiveness. And I'm glad that you straightened a lot of that out. Okay. We're going to move on to the Retail Pulse survey results. And I'm going to call on Joey, our marketing and communications manager, to go ahead and review. I think you're going to find some of the results of this survey very interesting. We had a very large segment of our membership that actually responded. So Joey.
Perfect. Thank you, Ray. All right. As Ray said, we're going to be going over our Retail Pulse survey. This is the survey that we do yearly. And this year, we really decided to focus in on COVID-19 and its impact it was having on retailers. So as Ray said, we had 93 small business owners respond to the survey. This first two graphs are sort of the breakdown of who responded and their business classification. So as you can see, majority of Retail Alliance is retail. You have some services, restaurant, a combination of the two, and then other. And then on the right side, you can see the breakdown of the number of employees of those respondents, the majority being 5 and under. That's sort of where we're at with who answered this survey. All right, the first question we asked was really, we wanted to know about the impact the pandemic is having on your business. Pretty obviously, as we can see the results, 76% came back with a negative impact. Not too surprising there. This next graph we'd asked them about if they had to close their business for any number or any amount of time because of the pandemic. 21% responded that yes, they did have to close their business because of COVID exposure. We followed that one up with, if you did close, for how long? Of those that closed, 78% were closed for 15 or more days. All right, so let's see. And then in our next question, we wanted to ask how everyone was doing with their sales volumes compared to before COVID. So we asked them to go back to before March and then compare to where they're at now and how they've been selling. The big ones to take out of this is it's all pretty clear, and what you'd expect is that the majority of respondents are selling less volume than they were before COVID. Nothing too surprising there. 14% were selling above COVID levels. So that's great for them, but the majority are below COVID. As you can see, the bulk of it, 27%, they're in the 100 to 76% of pre-COVID levels. All right, then we wanted to know about financial assistance. So of the respondents, we asked them, have they applied for any financial assistance? And if so, which kinds? As you can see, the majority applied for financial assistance, the biggest one being the PPP loan. And then we have 32% got the EIDL, 29% grants, 10% some various loans. Beyond that, very few people did not apply for financial assistance. 20% is the number. 8% people have not been able to secure any financial assistance. So about what you'd expect for that. We did ask then a follow-up if they're going to be applying for future financial support. 43% said yes, and then 30% are in that range where a lot of us are right now, who just, I don't know. So that's where we're standing with financial support and assistance during the pandemic. Let's see. All right, now this one is where we got to some of the interesting things that we were asking. So we asked about change of operations since the pandemic started. So as you can see, the orange are things that businesses were already doing. The yellow are things that businesses think they're going to be temporarily doing in response to COVID. And then the green are things that they were not doing before COVID, but are now doing and expecting to keep after COVID ends. The big ones here to take note of are, we can look at the ones that are temporary. 42% have had to reduce staff. 44% have had to limit the capacity of shoppers into their businesses. Now, these are people, now the businesses that have responded this way are still expecting to be able to roll this back once the pandemic's over. Some things that people are going to be keeping are, the big one is the e-commerce stores. Majority of them had it, but those that did not have it fully expect to keep that. Only 2% are doing it temporarily. Curbside pickup is also one that people have really decided that they like. And then, of course, safety protocols being a thing that we expect after the pandemic ends to still be on shoppers' minds, the safety and how they feel going into a business. And then all of these graphs and all these charts, we're going to compile into a big presentation that we'll be sending out to members shortly. All right, now we talked about e-commerce a little bit. That was a big one that we wanted to talk to our members about and get some info. So we asked people if they had e-commerce before COVID. 41% said yes, 59% said no. Of those that said no, we asked if they've launched it since COVID started. 33% that did not have e-commerce before have now launched it. 67% said no. Now, we're not entirely sure if the business just does not support an e-commerce platform, and that may be why that number was so high. But as you can see, there is definitely a growth from those who did not have e-commerce to those who are doing it now. In addition, we asked everyone who did have e-commerce, as you can go all the way to the right chart, if they expanded their e-commerce store. 51% have expanded. So definitely, as you probably saw in our Strive retail workshop about trends, e-commerce is here to stay. All right, and here we go, more e-commerce. We asked them about their sales since the pandemic started, specifically on e-commerce. As you can see, the big one is that yellow one, and that is 35% of the respondents said that they have seen an increase of 15% or more on their e-commerce sales since the pandemic started. Very few have seen their e-commerce sales decrease. As you'll see later and then earlier in the slides, almost everyone's seen their sales decrease, but e-commerce overall is doing very well. All right, and then this is another one we asked. We asked the respondents what their biggest challenges were during the holiday period, or what they're expecting their biggest challenges to be. Orange and yellow are people who are expecting a challenge. Orange is a slight challenge, yellow, significant challenge, green being no challenge. As you can see, if you just take the yellow and the orange by themselves, people are expecting a lot of challenges this year. The big one that we noticed was the customers' concern about safety due to COVID, which is something on everybody's minds. They're worried about customers going into their store, feeling safe shopping. So that is one that we've noticed that our members are also very aware of. Other concerns, of course, cash flow, and then limited advertising and marketing budgets. They're having trouble reaching the people that they want to reach, and then them getting into their stores and then being able to support that with a cash flow. Other things to notice is the only ones that we had a majority saying no challenge expected were staffing, which is only a 51% majority, and then an increase of online shopping, which goes hand in hand with what we found about e-commerce. Not many people are worried about the weather, which probably should be something we're worried about. This area, you never know about the weather, but I guess with the pandemic, the weather sort of bumped down a little bit lower on our list of concerns. Sorry. And then our last one was the big question we always ask, and that is, how do people think they're going to do this holiday sales versus the same period last year? And as you can see, it's not great. The majority of our respondents definitely believe that they're going to be having a decrease of sales from the same time last year, with the biggest decrease being 25% say that they're going to have a decrease of 15% or more. 20% flat increase, and then very few people, it looks to be about 30% overall, think they'll have any increase whatsoever. Right. That is the Retail Pulse survey. I know it was a little fast, but as I said, we will be doing a full write-up of this. Let me see if there are any questions first. I see a few in the chat.
I think Jim's got one that wanted to know what retail categories were reporting growth in their business. And I believe, Joey, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think your hardware stores, your garden centers, bookstores. Do you know
Yes.
any others?
As far as the ones that reported an increase, it is those stores that Ray sort of said, those home improvement stores, the kind of things that people can do from home are big right now. And then, as I said, when we release the full survey, we will have a more in-depth breakdown of each category based on industry type and where they stand in that.
Good stuff. I think one thing it does illustrate is the ingenuity and the ability for a lot of our small guys, our retailers in general, to adapt to this changing landscape, those that were able to make that pivot.
Exactly. As Misty said, the innovation that we've seen from some of these business owners has just been amazing to watch.
Okay. Do you have any other updates regarding grants, resources, things of that nature?
I do. As always, we like to provide this last little slide for the resources that we've been doing during COVID-19. You can go to our website. There's a coronavirus retailers resources right on the top front page. This has all of this info on it. So it has links to all of our Strive webinars, our podcasts, the different face masks and things that we're making available. We would like to call attention to these 3 grants at the top of this page. And like I said, you can find this on our website. But we have the Rebuild Virginia grants and the VA 30-day fund. Those are open right now, so anybody can go and apply for those. We have
Joey? Hey, it's Kate.
Hi,
Sorry, I wanted to bring up the Rebuild Virginia grant because there have been changes made to it that allow it to be expanded and more people to apply for it, which has been sent out by us a couple times. But we're hearing that some people who are applying are having trouble with applying or not hearing back. So today, the VRF is sending out an email on a couple different things, but there's going to be a survey in that. Have you applied for it? Was it difficult? Have you heard back? How long did it take? They still have, I believe, at least $40 million left in the fund. And they've got to use it by the end of December. So it's important to take advantage of that. And it has been expanded that, our members who have applied for PPP can still apply for this if they fall under certain thresholds.
Great.
So let me know if y'all have had trouble with it, and we can send those on to the administration as well.
Perfect. And then that last fund, the Virginia Beach Pandemic Relief Partnership Small Business Grant, it's a mouthful, that opens on November 30th. So keep an eye out for that one coming up. Kate, while you're here, let me ask you a question. We did have someone send me a private message asking about that maximum of 25 rule for participants.
Yes.
And they want to know, are days like Black Friday or Small Business Saturday considered an event for those purposes?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, that's just my gut on that. I can't imagine them thinking that because that's you doing your everyday business. But if you're having like a holiday open house, yes. But I mean, Black Friday is just a normal shopping day. It just happens to have turned into a big deal. And Small Business Saturday, the same thing. I mean, people are coming in to shop. They're not coming to attend an event. And that's the way you have to look at it. While it may be a restaurant hosting it in their normal course of business, those that are attending, they're not attending it in their normal, they're not employees. They're not attending it in their normal course of business. That makes sense. Great.
Perfect. And that's where we're at, right? That's the resources that we are providing at this time.
And we, of course, we always tell our members, please feel free to reach out to our membership relations advisors, Karen, as well as Beth. Stay tuned for our Strive webinars, our podcasts, If you're interested in our retail think tanks, again, contact or reach out to the member relations advisors. And we still do have some masks left. So if any of our folks need some masks, Karen and Beth will make sure that those get out there. We are going to be opening up, or we have opened up the registration for the next certificate in retail operations. That will be launched in March. We had a great success with it last year. So we're going to be doing this again this year virtually. And then, of course, check out the buy local resources and download those. Before I get to Lisa Renee, Kate, did you have another question you wanted to ask?
It was about the Rebuild Virginia grant and wanting to know if any of our members are having trouble with that or having trouble getting some sort of response greater than a couple of weeks. I mean, it's going to take them more than a couple of weeks to get back to you. But if it's been, a month and you haven't heard anything, we would like to know that.
Good. Thank you, Kate.
Mm-hmm.
So Christmas is coming early this year, I understand. I think you're seeing a lot of decorations out there, and a lot of our small businesses are gearing up. We can see that the online sales is a huge thing. I'm going to call on Lisa Renee Jennings, our Love of Program Manager, for a Buy Local for the Holidays update. Lisa Renee?
Good morning, everyone. I have been talking since October about getting consumers out there and shopping right away. I've been letting consumers know that small businesses need the help now, and we cannot just cram all into stores. You guys are just talking about Small Business Saturday. We all can't show up on Small Business Saturday and expect to support local businesses only on that day. So we have been communicating for folks to do that in several different ways. Right now, the 15th started the Buy Local month. And I'm happy to tell you that I finally got on the docket for the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission yesterday. And if you don't know what that is, the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission is comprised of the 17 localities in Hampton Roads. And last year I presented them with a resolution calling for Buy Local month from November 15th to December 15th. They did push that resolution forward, and as of yesterday, they did renew that resolution for 2020. So I had the opportunity to present to some mayors and council people, letting them know the importance of this and that small businesses definitely, particularly this year, need an extra boost. I don't think it's on there yet, but Joey will post it onto the website. And Joey, if you have a second, if you could post the link to the that page that where we're talking about all of this. So in addition to Buy Local month, there are some alternative Buy Local holidays that are happening, some for the first time this year. Again, what I've been doing is talking about Plaid Friday, for example, which is the alternative to Black Friday for small businesses. We've been talking about that every Friday.
So let me make sure I'm clear. You do not have
Jim, you're not on mute.
Slips. I'm sorry, excuse me.
Classic Zoom. Plaid Friday replaces Black Friday. We've been talking about that every Friday. Shop Small Saturday, a lot of people know about this one. It is done by American Express, and even American Express has realized that we cannot all cram in on Saturday. So their message this year is shop small all season long. This next one, Artist Sunday, is a new one. It's its first time. They're trying to get this out nationally, particularly this year. Artists are also hurt by having access to consumers and being able to shop. So they're pushing this forward. And I know right here in Norfolk, the Chrysler Museum is doing a Museum Sunday on that day and having some special sales for folks to come in and get gifts. Cider Monday is the alternative to Cyber Monday. And I'm very proud to say that we have quickly, and we are still putting together a Love a gift guide. So our members have been asked, Love a members have been asked if they have some sort of small gift, a picture, a description, and a link to that gift. So I will release that on Cider Monday so people can shop safely from home and shop local online. So that is, as you've seen what Joey said, a lot of small businesses have moved to e-commerce. And so that's a great option for folks who need to stay home, who want to stay home and be safe, but they can still shop from home and still keep dollars in Hampton Roads. So I'm super excited to release the Love a Gift Guide on the 30th, and would appreciate your feedback from that. And if it's successful, we certainly can continue that into other holidays, Valentine's Day, for example. Lastly, I've added Giving Tuesday into the mix of alternative buy local holidays, simply because we have so many wonderful members that collaborate with nonprofits and help nonprofits out. We know that local businesses give more to local charities than anyone else. We've all gone to our favorite shop and asked for a gift card for a silent auction item, etc. So by promoting Giving Tuesday to promote the charities, we are in essence promoting a lot of our local businesses because they do give back so much and mean so much to our local nonprofits here in the area. Joey posted the link, so there are resources available to you, such as the Buy Local Month logo. Please use that. If any of these other holidays work well for your business, please throw those into the mix as well. If you need any help from me, please let me know. Plaid Friday officially isn't until next Friday, so Joey was offering to plaidify your logo for you if you'd like. The Love a logo today is Friday, so if you go to the local Love a Facebook page, you can see the Love a logo has been done in Plaid Friday. And if you're stretched for time, simply grab one of our posts, share it, and add your own details, whatever sale you're having, whatever's going on with them. We are open source, so please feel free to share and use as needed. And that's all.
Thanks, Renee. What I like, if you don't mind hitting on the new enhancement that's going to happen with Lova as far as the Hearts Redemption. And that's not going to be launched until next year, probably Valentine's Day, but we're already beginning the coding of the app to accommodate this change. So please.
Okay. All right. Ray is allowing me to do a big release. Okay. So we will be changing the Love a reward. Instead of having to earn 10 hearts to hit a reward, you're going to only need 5 hearts to hit a reward. There's a lot of research out there done that people who use loyalty reward programs, their biggest frustration and their biggest complaint is it takes too long to get a reward. So we will be contacting all of our businesses. You could change your reward anytime you wanted to anyway, but of course we will let them know ahead of this that can happen. So if you would like to change your reward, you certainly can. But just remember what I always say, folks they'll have to earn 5 hearts first, and then they have about 400 businesses to choose from. So it would be a good problem if consumers were knocking down your door to receive a reward. But so that's happening. We're already in the hopper to be moving on that code change, and so you will be hearing some announcements in the future on that.
Thank you, Lisa Renee. And I think it's easy to say that during these times, it's very important to support our local businesses because they really need it. So we're trying to keep this thing into an hour, and we are coming up close to an hour. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, feel free to reach out to our membership team, our membership advisors with any follow-up questions, or you can easily email our team, communications@retailalliance.com. With that, this concludes this COVID briefing. Please have a safe Thanksgiving, as different as it's going to be. Love your family, and good luck. And we will have another COVID briefing as needed. So please be on the lookout for any communications from Retail Alliance and our communications team. So God bless and have a great day.